Where we are now.
Here, it's just right.
Yeah.
Right, that was one where we said we need to rework stuff.
I feel like there needs to be more conversation there.
Yes, we needed more conversation on it, but where we left off was,
Well, I guess my question is, should we go back and have that conversation?
well, we
or-
might as well if we're trying to resolve things as we go along.
As we go
Yeah,
along,
yeah.
yeah, as much as possible.
So the discussion was around, we had started looking just to catch up on page 13 at the top, talking about this use of block for hotel and motel room.
Yeah,
And how that needed to be not just the department entering into agreements or the department, authorizing the agency to enter into an agreement. But then we were going back and saying, but section 1 is talking about if a hotel or motel is being utilized, the department enters into agreement, or wouldn't that be the same community partner as entering an agreement? Well, some people don't like the idea of them being connected. Others say, well, that would be, so we just realized it was kind of all
Well,
sticky.
and just as an update, the department's coming in tomorrow to testify on the bill. We don't know exactly when. And we do now? Oh, yeah, likely it'll be after floor tomorrow. That's what we're shooting for. They've asked to testify, so that's all I know. You know what I know, bless you. Well, I think you heard Lily say earlier this, what's today? Thursday, Tuesday, I don't know, whatever day it was. I don't know what day, Tuesday, I guess, when she was here. She asked, well, is that the community or is that the department? When we were talking about some of this stuff before, and honestly, I think it could be either. I don't think it needs to.
No, we
I don't
were,
think it
we were
has to
doing
be
it
the
as,
department.
we were doing this as,
Yeah,
but then we realized it needed more restructuring because it was a little confusing because
this is language that was taken out of 91.
right,
so,
I know, that's why
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm trying to understand the reworking. Is it beyond needing to be clear that it could be the department or community providers?
No, I think that was the clarity that the issue was you couldn't just inject words because it has an intro.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So,
I
but
think that was-
that's
I
the
think-
concept.
well, everybody agree that was the concept that we weren't sure. And then once the concept was resolved, then it has to be restructured so the concept applies to 1 and 2. And I guess 3 and 4 kind of tie together. That's where it's
Well, I
shells
right.
prioritized, right?
I know that, the department had in its proposal, the utilization of 21 staff positions, 12 of which would be stationed out in and around hotels. I think we had some questions about whether, why wouldn't those be community providers? Why would we be setting up a separate
Yeah,
system? Because the department's not going to be providing the supportive services. It's going to
Right.
be the community providers providing the supportive services. So that seemed to be
Right.
redundant, I guess, or somehow not make sense to me.
so it may be that just the lead-in language, hotel or motel being utilized, the department or an assigned community partner. Well, but then the partner isn't going to enter into an agreement with a partner.
Okay. So Katie, I guess what we're trying to get at is it doesn't have to be the department who's always entering into an agreement with a hotel. It could be a department or a community partner. But we still want the hotels to have to meet all the life safety rules and all of that.
Yes, and there was that's actually, where is that? That's further,
It's page 12.
page 12. And that's where we had a comment about, well, I mean, 1 and 2, in theory, they have to anyway, but we spelled them out and that we should then also spell out the ADA requirements as number 3. Yes, they're required to anyway, but that's true of 1 and 2, so.
I don't know what the public accommodation rules are for ADA.
Well,
I don't think all the rooms have to be ADA.
no, they don't. but they all have to meet the public accommodation. I guess if the reference is to the public accommodation, is that,
Yeah, I need to know the back, I mean,
yeah,
I support the concept, I'm just not sure it's a requirement that, all hotels meet ADA compliance. I don't know the answer to that question.
It's not.
Could you identify
Okay,
yourself?
Sorry, Brenda Siegel and Homelessness Vermont. It's not a requirement that they all meet it. It's that the person has somewhere they can go in their district that meets their needs.
That,
So, like,
that might not be possible.
Right, well.
I mean, I can give you examples of places where it's not gonna be
It's
possible.
within reason. The reasonable accommodation means it has to be within reason. So, yeah.
so that's
So we
separate. from-
want to, that's
Just-
separate.
That's
from what-
separate from what we're
Yes.
requiring hotels and motels.
Yes.
It's a different section.
Right, it'd be a different section.
Right,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So. let's
Okay.
do that.
All right,
All right.
we do want to state specific about reasonable accommodation, but it goes in a different section.
Yes, right.
Okay. So,
So I think we are now on, finished with that section. You know, that we left off yesterday.
so permanent supportive housing services. I left this at TBD honestly, because I was not the right person to fill this in because I didn't know sufficiently about exactly.
Well, since she's left the room,
What
we
that
can
means.
say Jubilee was gonna do that.
Okay.
I think there was maybe some conversation about maybe Jubilee would have some, but I don't remember what.
She said she had sent Teresa something when she was on this.
Really did. Okay, she may have. I'm,
When you were sick.
yeah, I didn't
Oh,
look at email yet.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, that's what she said. She had sent something to.
okay. What, Doug?
I thought she had said that she was not going to be working on this section. It was diversion and prevention and some language about diversion that she may have been.
Okay, thank you. I knew it came up, but, okay. So
Okay.
nobody is working on it currently.
So I need somebody to do some work with, DCF on this. Esme,
Sure,
can I ask you to? do that?
yeah. I want to make sure I understand very specifically.
We're not looking for like all the elements of
Yeah.
permanent supportive housing.
Yeah.
And it's not just through DCF, remember, other departments provide. It doesn't have that label, but they
Yeah.
provide the same function. I'm just looking for really a paragraph descriptor.
Of permanent.
As a description of it as part of this continuum.
Continuum of
here.
services.
There's a
Yeah.
list of.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. I don't know if you guys saw my hand.
I didn't see your hand and you moved on the screen.
Oh, sorry.
You
don't know
didn't
why.
do it, your block moved.
I was just gonna suggest to Esme, if you're working with DCF, maybe check in with them to see what they use for family supportive housing. Because the services are very similar. I think so Lily should be able to give you a paragraph of what, align it with what is used for family supportive housing.
Okay, and we just want to make sure that it's a broad enough definition so that people who have other disabilities and might get funded by mental health or might get funded by Dale or VDH or Department of Corrections might be able to might understand that this means them too.
Right.
Go ahead, Jenna.
Right now, the state.
Just say who you are for the
Jenna
record.
Farrell, the Scheme of Community Action, St. Johnsbury. The department has a permanent supported housing, permanent supported housing assistance program. There's 100 slots available right now. So it's very limited and it allows providers to build Medicaid.
That's what, so that's not the new program, is it?
Yes,
The Medicaid new
Yes.
program?
that is the new program called permanent supporting housing.
Is it time limited? I don't know. I'm trying to remember if that's one of the things they said was at risk. Okay,
And we're meaning as a broader catch-all
Right.
right.
category of.
Multiple
different types.
departments, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You got it? Bev?
Yeah, Vermont Early Childhood Advocacy Alliance. I think there may be a difference between
permanent supported housing, capital P, capital S, capital H, which is an Medicaid benefit.
Yes.
Yeah,
And permanent supported housing, small p, small s, small
Yeah.
h, which is a general concept.
yeah.
And I think family supported housing, also with capital letters, is like, is also a Medicaid benefit, I think. So just if we apply to help you think that through a little bit,
Yeah, well, and we have indicated, there's lead-in language here someplace that talks about, Medicaid receipts to the extent, to seek Medicaid receipts. So they, in the department's proposal, they did not identify any federal receipts. They all identified this as general fund. But I'm sure, for instance, that part of case management can be Medicaid if it's done at Dale or DMH or, potentially at BDH. And there are some housing, like permanent supportive housing, that has other names and other departments is also Medicaid billable. Yeah. Amy?
I shall remember, I just wanted to apply for family supportive housing. I actually asked, I have Kim Chelsea, our director here today, asked them about it. And they indicated to me that that's more of a prevention program. So it's more to help families stay in housing as opposed to what I understand permanent supportive housing to be is after they've achieved housing.
Yeah.
Just to apply that difference. Both important.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so we're gonna move on from that one for right now and get to case management services. Katie, do you want to join us? I just realized we interrupted the flow and I wasn't here yesterday, so I.
Do you want the screen, the bill pulled up on the screen, or do you want to use your own?
Everybody can use their own.
Case management is 2210. Case management services shall be required for all eligible households participating in the program, except where specifically exempted for certain services. Case management services provided pursuant to this chapter shall be informed by the acuity level of the eligible household and include individualized supports that connect an eligible household to public assistance, healthcare, employment, permanent housing, and other services. Each eligible household shall be assigned a lead case management entity, which may be from an agency any agency.
It's right.
Any agency of human services department or a community partner.
So, and we do have language that somebody found, I don't know if it was Rick or Lori, I can't remember which, from two bills ago, that references the ability to participate depending upon their disability. I can't remember if I sent it to you, Katie, or not. I can't remember anything right now. To be honest.
I think I tried to integrate it into something in the definitions.
We added it in the, yeah.
I can add it here.
That's in the, it's on page 5. It's in the definitions. Eligible household means a household that's physically present and intends to reside in Vermont as evidenced by active participation in, a plan. And we added to the extent of.
So I use the language, so I now have plan, unless the head of the household has a disability that prevents the head of the household's active participation.
That's not the language that was in the other.
It didn't fit neatly, so I had to try to change it to fit it into for this purpose.
I don't like it, so.
Okay.
The reference to head of household almost implies that that person would be relieved, but someone else.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, I know the head of household language. Brenda, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that, since our preference is voluntary, if it's required, that people have choice in their case manager. So even if someone is initially assigned, I think it should be clear that that the person has to choose. Because that's what we've seen so many times, if something didn't work, and so they change.
Well, we don't have anything yet in the statute that says you're required to participate in the plan.
It says that in this.
Yeah, and she's just,
Yeah.
if we get to that point where we're saying that, that's what we're talking
Oh,
about
at some
now.
point in the future.
Well, no, that's what we're saying right here. We're saying each person's required. Shall be required for all
Well,
eligible
okay, this
households.
needs to be rewritten because to me, that clearly says case management services shall be required. In other words, the provider of services are required to provide case management services to eligible households that are participating in the program. This is focused on, the way it's written, it's focused on the provider is required to provide the services, not that the participant is
engaging.
required to engage in them.
I understand that. And that's an interesting read on that. So Katie, I think I don't want it in that definition. I think I would prefer the language from
Yeah.
before, something closer to it, and putting it in this case management services section.
Sure.
And I think Anne's making
You want to flip it so that
yeah,
it says something about the family
yeah.
household receiving service. Okay.
So this was the list of things that were part of the continuum of care,
Yeah.
but we don't have case management services on the list of continuum of care. We end that with permanent supportive services and other services as
Well,
necessary.
I think it says something else underneath there.
Other services as necessary. Page 8.
Thank you. I'm looking for it. Yeah, so we should add that then.
That case management services are
continuum.
part of the,
Yeah,
which then makes it clear that I think that 2210 is about the services being part of the continuum of care and what that means, the individualized supports and so forth. And then it may need to be a separate section in terms of expectations of participants rather than commingled there, or I'm not sure, but
at least a separate paragraph.
a separate paragraph.
Yeah. I mean, what this is saying is that there'll be some need to evaluate what case management services means.
Right.
And more specifics, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think we've described at some point previously, and
I think that the comment that we received about choice is important. Not sure it's always going to be available, but there
that would
should
be in the section on what's expected,
Yeah.
on the recipient services paragraph.
Well, I think it would be in this where we talk about each eligible household shall be assigned.
Yeah.
But it should be down there with
Mhm.
regarding choice of case management provider, if applicable. Go ahead, Eric.
I understand
I see.
the intent is that within the continuum of care, everybody is involved in coordinated actually. Well, that's the case manager. They're the ones that are putting together the individualized plan. And with that, then they are choosing whom they want to engage with the provider. So the point being is that that case manager is the access point and coordinated entry. And then
Yes.
after that, their choice of who to engage and whatever services are needed, it's completely
But remembering
their discretion.
we're broadening up the expectation that coordinated entry be provided not just by the existing people who do it, but by other AHS partners, by AHS itself. I'm just making sure that.
Yeah, but the original point of entry is with a case manager that's accessing and working with them and then putting them into
Yeah.
coordinated entry.
Yeah.
After the case plan is developed, then whatever choice the people are using
Yeah.
to utilize whatever services, the point being is that's the original case manager, that's where the team gets put together.
Right. I
And
just-
then whatever choice they want to engage in, whatever services they would like to engage is at their discretion. To kind of throw it broadly on out there and saying, well, they should be able to choose their case manager while you're entering into coordinated
Let me-
entry.
Let me just show you, let me just say like a sort of real life example. So let's say, a designated agency, no, bad choice. Let's say an area agency on aging. They're doing their work, they're out in the community, they realize, okay, I've got 5 people at this hotel. I think that they could be eligible for Choices for Care. I'm going to ask them about doing a coordinated entry assessment. Now, these are people who don't necessarily do those assessments right now, but they would be trained up to do them. I'm just wondering, I'm inquiring of you, are you thinking when you say case management of the current people who do coordinated entry?
That's where it would begin now. Yep.
Well, it wouldn't, because what we're talking about is it being much broader than just the current people who do coordinated entry. We're saying that a designated agency case manager could do it, or a AAA case manager could do it, or
They
you
still
know.
have to have access and get trained up on
Yes.
coordinated entry, therefore they would still be that point person.
Yeah, okay, we're saying the same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I just
But
wanted to
thi-
make sure we were saying the
This is
same
about a
thing.
lead case management entity. It's not about the lead person.
I've used entity on purpose.
Yeah, okay, yep, yeah.
Okay, so folks, we have to switch gears here for a few minutes. We're joined by Dr. Hildebrandt, Commissioner of the Department of Health. We've been having this discussion, I guess I'll say, about the opioid settlement funds and the provision of any kind of resources to the city of Burlington via their grant agreement with the Department of Health, since it did not appear on the recommendations for either group. And, you know, we've been in the learning process of understanding that the sub-grantee is looking at potential purchase of a property. So thank you for joining us, Dr. Hildebrandt. And I think that what we'd like to hear from you is some, I guess, clarification of the involvement of VDH in these conversations, because what we're hearing from the city of Burlington is that they've been actively in communication with the grant manager, or I'm not sure what the position is called, but and you know, feel like this sort of I'm just trying to figure out what's the department's position, and you know, where do we move from here, essentially?
Sure. I do want to say, and thank you for having me. I do want to say, you know, please understand that we have a somewhat biased opinion here. We, you know, the position of the governor has been made very clear. And when the appropriation was first made, intelligently, the legislature sort of gave us instructions that we shouldn't be in a sort of decision-making capacity in this particular grant. It was our job to help as a grant administrator. In this instance, we did get an inquiry 2 weeks ago on the 28th of January that was asking whether it would be an allowable purchase or allowable use of the funds to use it to purchase a building. The appropriation language we did review, and it was never contemplated to be used to purchase a building. That was not ever contemplated in the initial sort of development of this grant, but it was not excluded. It was not explicitly stated in the appropriation or anywhere else that this is an exclusion of the funds. But just again, to be clear, that was never sort of contemplated, I don't think, by any of us as a use of these funds. It is. I'm relatively new to this. I've been trying to learn up. This is a pretty atypical use of grant funds. It's not something that we would typically do, is use it to purchase a building. What's been done in the past is we have used funds to pay for a mortgage, as an example, as part of the operational costs of a program. There are concerns in this particular instance in that line of talking. My understanding is the belief by BCJR is to use this building for all of its operations, not just for the Overdose Prevention Center. And if that was to be contemplated using funds for something like paying a mortgage, I think it would be important to ensure that only the portion of the building that was being used for the Overdose Prevention Center was to be covered as part of this grant. And again, that is something we have done in the past. The other thing I do want to highlight is that part of this process as well is to do a service assessment that must be completed before we can, proceed with this. And we've not received a service assessment from VCJR. It's an assessment of the facility to see that it could actually meet the needs of the grant. So we don't know that it's been done or not. It may have been done, but we haven't received that. And that's an important step that we would also need to ensure was completed prior to proceeding in any way.
Thank you, Commissioner. The folks from the city and VCJR are not available to testify yet. And we are probably going to move the bill, frankly, before they have all their ducks in a row. I don't know if we'll make any particular recommendation in this bill, but so I guess two things. One, I think that it's understandable that despite repeated attempts that they were unable to secure a lease for a building, given the topic of what would be there. So I don't think we have any particular opposition to the purchase of a building. It's how that happens and what kind of dollars are laid out and what the expectations would be with that building. Because again, this is a pilot program. It's not necessarily set up as a permanent program.
Right.
That being said, that's also an argument that would be difficult to get a mortgage for something that doesn't have ongoing funding. And I don't expect you to answer this question off the cuff unless you feel like you want to. But one of the things that could be contemplated is in the recommendation for opioid settlement funds is money for so a specific appropriation for money for the purchase of a building and fit up, but with strings, essentially, that it's used only for this purpose. And if it stops being used for that purpose, then the building would need to be sold and the money would need to be reverted back to the state. That's sort of the kind of thing I'm trying to figure out, some problem solving to move the policy along at the same time and to recognize, some of the challenges associated with establishing a program like this.
Right. And I think that's exactly right, Chairwood. I think, that if the city and the OPC were to talk with OSAC about, this conversation, that's exactly the right forum to have this conversation. Hey, we tried to find a lease. We could not. We have a potential plan forward. It's going to require ongoing funding, and have that discussion at OSAC. I think that's a really rich discussion for them to have. We will, of course, follow the instruction by the legislature in how to help administer this grant, make sure that we have clear guardrails about what, this is and what it is not for. But I do think that's the right venue to have that conversation. I understand that, they did not go to OSAC this year to talk about this. And understandably, they had a lot of money that had been appropriated at that point. But I do think that's the right venue to have that conversation.
Representative Stay, did you have a question?
I did. Do they have a specific building in mind already?
My understanding, and I don't know all the specifics here, but my understanding is yes, and they were very close to sort of signing something, which is, again, of concern given that we never had this service assessment completed. You would absolutely need to do that before you were to outlay, any kind of funding. But thankfully, that did not happen. They did not, sign anything. But my understanding is they do have a very specific building in mind.
And would that have to go through DRB and planning where neighbors would be notified what would be used in that building and so they could express their concerns? I have a lot of friends and relatives in Burlington.
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that, but that's a very, valid question. Because again, the reason I think there was such a hard time in them acquiring a lease was for those very reasons. So
Nobody
I don't know the
wanted
answer
it.
to that. I don't know the answer to that, but that's a very, good consideration as well.
Yeah, that's what I heard from friends and relatives, that neighbors and people that live in Burlington are sick of it. Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Representative McGuire.
I know the, all that feasibility, stuff is still in the looks. Are they looking at if they are able, not necessarily purchasing the building, but have they done any type of looking into insuring the building?
Oh, that's true. I
Right,
wouldn't
so-
enjoy it.
So we don't know, and that was one of the, one very important thing as a requirement for this grant is to have insurance, especially given the, proposed activity there. We have not heard that information either.
Thank you.
And those are all things required before you release any further
Correct.
payments. Is that
Correct.
right?
Correct. You need to have insurance as a requirement, and again, that service assessment.
I think in talking with Shayla that it took some months, but I think that they did acquire insurance.
Yeah, it's for the operation, but not for the building.
Not the building. Okay, thank you. And do you feel like there's been sufficient communication do you think that the city of Burlington understands what they need to do in order to?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Chairman, but that's obviously an ongoing discussion, but I don't know.
Okay, all right. Are there any other questions from committee members? Okay, just, for informational purposes, we are going to try to have the city of Burlington and DCJR in to testify. It might not be on our time frame, so we might have some placeholder language. We might not, depending upon what the committee feels like. But this is likely to be an ongoing discussion as it moves through this process. Yeah, I was concerned as well, Commissioner, that this didn't go through the committee process. And, to listen to the city of Burlington representative. They felt like Senator Hardy's motion, that there would just be an automatic $1.1 million. I guess there was some motion made at one of the meetings for the four top priorities for ongoing funding, this being one of them. That's what was conveyed to me anyway. I don't know exactly what that means, but I think that all the way around, I think we need better communication and better understanding of from both the legislative perspective, because we did not, honestly consider the lump sum payment for a building. We did recognize in the ongoing operations budget that there would be, monthly lease or potentially mortgage payments, but we did not envision a lump sum payment. And so that also would make me be thinking like the 1.1 million included those monthly lease payments. And so should we be reducing that 1.1 million? Because if they purchase a building, they would not have those.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Appreciate that. And if there's anything that we can do to improve communication or transparency, we absolutely want to do that. I know this has not gone ideally, but if there's anything that we can help with going forward, we do want to be there, at any time. I'm trying to get as briefed as I can on what's happened to date and bring that to you all.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, there were a number of us who were surprised. So it wasn't only the health department. So thank you so much for letting us interject into your day here.
Anytime.
Okay.
All right. Bye-bye
Thank
now.
you. Okay, so more to come on that, folks. But I want to be clear that I do want to move the bill tomorrow, if possible. I doubt we will have sufficient information on this, and they will have to address it in other committees or in the Senate. Is the way I'm looking at it, because I also don't want to rush into something that we don't know all the details of yet. And I want to be fair to them, and I want to be fair to the resources that we have laid out here. Okay. All right, so let's move back.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can I just make a quick comment?
Yeah.
I have updated the sheet
Great.
from all your decisions. It's posted on the web. Here are hard copies for anyone who wants updated. It's also on the website. I added in all the decisions you made today, so you can see.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, So I can get rid of this one.
Get rid of it. Oh,
I've not-
You got a couple there?
Okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, have you updated this since you gave it to me earlier, Nolan?
Oh, you have.
Yeah, then,
Yeah. He gave me- he gave me-
the first person said it wasn't, and I realized it was wrong. It was just a minute.
Updated at 10:30, okay, yeah. Thank you for putting the time on it, so I realize if I.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, that's why.
This is
I
good.
appreciate that. Okay, so we'll come back to opioid settlement fund later, not today, but later, tomorrow. And did Katie have to leave?
Right here.
Oh, she's right here, okay.
You're not the only one who does it.
I go see. Yes, you're over there.
So I was about to jump in when we got cut off, but you may want to do a lead in before I
Page
pick up mid-sentence.
15. Two oh five three.
I think that was.
Well, I was just being informed of that and I'm. Okay. Yes, it's not only pursuant to 2205.
Right,
And this-
there's
this
a little more
section,
work tweaking there
yeah.
because it's not only for emergency.
All over the place, yeah. Okay. Briefly on that.
That's why it's under the shelters now.
Right.
13.
Yep.
It's in shelter services now. Okay,
While you were on a different topic, I rewrote this case management services. Is that useful? Would you like to look at that?
Yeah, sure.
Let me share my screen. Okay. So I now have paragraph A and B.
Much, unless.
Too bigger.
Online, we're-
Nope, it's not online. This is my working document. Better? Okay. A lead case management entity shall provide case management services to all eligible households participating in the program, except where these services are specifically exempted for certain services. You can play with that a little. Case management services provided pursuant to this chapter shall be informed by acuity level of the eligible household and include individualized supports. We've already read through that. And then I've created a subsection B specific to the households that pulls in the language you sent me, which does use head of household. So unless the head of an eligible household has a disability that prevents the head of the household's ability to participate, it uses the old language used coordinated entry and case management processes, or where coordinated entry and case management is specifically exempted for specific services. An eligible household served by this program shall participate in coordinated entry and case management processes, including cooperating with the department and the lead case management entity on screening and care planning. To the extent feasible, an eligible household may choose the lead case management entity to which it is assigned. Does that get us closer? There's some typos.
closer. I'm just trying to remember why we said head of household. Why would it just be head of household?
Coordinated, yep, thank you. We could say that prevents a member of the house,
Why don't we just say household?
prevents the eligible household.
Yeah, because that's defined as an individual or a group of individuals.
Unless
So keep the disability.
a member,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
member of the eligible household has a
okay,
prevents
yeah, that's better.
the eligible household disability
There's an, line 7, second word, kick out.
unless. Yeah. Some member of the eligible household has a disability that prevents the eligible household's ability to participate in. Do you want coordinated entry and case management? I would.
Yeah,
Okay, so maybe we change that up here to an A, so it's consistent, and change the heading to be coordinated entry and case management.
or,
Sorry, I'll do that later. Here is a reading, sorry.
right,
Okay. So, when we started talking about this and I was talking about reading it, which is now addressed, reading it as not focused on the recipient. Now we have, but that was part of kind of a larger question of what seemed to be a gap in this, because this now says, shall, how is it worded? Shall participate, but we don't have anything that says, and what happens if they don't participate, which if it's left wide open, I mean, the department could say, you're not participating, you have to leave in 24 hours. I'm exaggerating, but there's nothing in terms of the intent that said they need to participate. There's nothing, we've had in past versions, you know, if there's violence or putting other people at risk, they can ask for leave. And then there's an appeals process. And that whole piece seems to be kind of missing.
Well, the appeals process will be in here because it is appealable.
But what are you appealing if
proposing.
you're not going to be ever asked to leave?
Well, chances are you would be asked to leave, but
we don't have that as something that can happen. That's all I'm
if
saying.
it's required, it's a requirement. What we're saying is it's a requirement for shelter or emergency housing.
Yeah.
In order to receive that, unless you have a disability that prevents you from participating.
So you're saying then implicit, if you don't, they can ask you to leave, but
Yeah.
we're not putting any strictures on how the department or an agency can,
Well,
a basis for asking. to
yeah,
leave.
I'm not saying maybe that should be something,
Okay.
is a whole separate section maybe.
Right, okay.
About that. Because, yeah, I see everybody's hands. That might be something to think about. I mean, I think, you know, part of what we're being shaded by, I guess, or I don't know, I'm not using the right words, but is the experience that we've had in the department operating the GA emergency housing benefit
Yes.
has been, you know, I'm just going to, from my perspective, not ideal. And so I'm trying to, you know, figure out what's the balance to create in outlining this new continuum of supports.
Right.
And, you know, how much is appropriate for us to put in statute, and how much would be through, you know, the public process in regulation development, which we'll be requiring. Yeah.
Right, because we don't want them to have kind of
Yeah.
unfettered discretion.
So
in how
hold
to
on to that
interpret.
thought and
Okay.
we'll have more discussion about that.
Okay.
Esme and then Jenna.
Yeah, echoing Ann's point was just the word cooperating with the department, kind of cooperating is a really tough word in statute. I could assume, you know, I don't know what the.
Left into the eye of beholder.
Exactly.
Interpretation.
We've had so many issues with the department and what cooperation means and how it's directly tied to your ability to be sheltered. So when it's, that open-ended. So that language I'm particularly aligned to.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Jenna?
And back on A before B, about coordinated entry, that would be coordinated entry, capital C, capital E.
Yes,
Okay, because it's a HUD process,
yes.
participants of continuum care participated. Okay. I'm pretty sure it was.
Go ahead.
Katie, would you mind bringing that back up on the screen? Yes, so, unless, can you lower just, it's cut off that top line. Unless a member of the eligible
No. I don't get it
has
either.
a disability, that seems like that could be any member of the family.
It would
I
have to
don't
be
know.
eligible member, not household. Or eligible person, I don't know.
I guess I'm envisioning, is there a 7-year-old child in the house who has a disability, but they're not the one who would need to be participating in the process, if you will, it would be their parent, guardian, et cetera, who would be participating. So that household would not really be prohibited from participating.
But it could be if the child needed constant care. So it doesn't only apply to if it interferes with. So
That's about-
if it's a child and that doesn't interfere with their participating, then that wouldn't apply as an exemption. But if it's a child with a disability which is what's preventing the parent from participating, then it would.
I can just give an example, working with a family in a hotel back when I did direct service. Her son had a lot of disabilities. In fact, like if they were left alone, they could choke, like they needed constant supervision. So there had to be some accommodations made to make the entire household be able to participate. And so it didn't look like everyone else's. There were, and so this, that's only comes into play if there is a disability that kind of prevents the household participating in the traditional way. There will be some accommodations and, that might look a little different for a household with a family member with disability.
And it might not.
And it might not, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anna?
On that statement, we want to separate coordinated entry from case management because
Yeah.
in coordinated entry processes, that family with a disability is going to get priority over other people on the coordinated entry list. You wouldn't want them to somehow bypass coordinated entry. You want to separate the two.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yes.
So maybe we have two separate sections, Katie. I mean, I think you're
No, it's
making
a
an
really good
important
point,
point. Yeah.
So everyone, do you
So
want to
we-
go back to just having this be, case management services and then have coordinated entry as a standalone section?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
having a
you
separate
hands
section.
up on that thoughts.
Yeah, Chad.
Go ahead.
Chad Simmons, Housing and Homelessness Alliance, Vermont. I think this is just a really a good example of it's really important to tie any definitions or programmatic guidance towards the existing definitions of coordinated entry and other HUD defined processes. And so I think our concern would be that we would be creating competing or conflicting guidance.
Yeah, the two separate things from my perspective. It's why I was questioning Representative McGuire earlier, because it's not necessarily the person putting in the assessment, doing the assessment, that's going to be the case manager.
There's no services from coordinated entry.
Yeah.
It is
Right,
a
and-
person doing an intake, it is a person at our agency doing an intake. Or we have referral partners already in the community who are trained, they do the intake, they give it to us. We have someone who manages.
I know, I think they call it case management.
It is, but it's not, they're managing the process.
Yeah.
In a list.
Yes.
They're not doing like extensive.
Not the matching of the needs with the services. They're identifying the needs, but not the sort of legwork that it would take to take somebody to 3 different res care homes and see if they're comfortable living in
So
them.
like our coordinated,
Documentation, it's a system. Or
yeah, the person manages
It's
the
not the
coordinated entry.
services.
Yeah, the coordinated entry person has 100-something people on the list.
Right, so you can't do, it's not real case management.
So I'm just,
So,
we're
We're gonna separate the two.
Okay.
Right, and I had a note that it's not just my note, but I think we talked already about in our definitions, coordinated entry needs to be defined as what HUD says it is, as opposed to a generic description. Did you have that?
I didn't.
You did. Oh, you didn't.
I didn't.
Okay, all right. Well, better be something we all, I think we discussed it.
I know,
Was every-
I'm feeling anxious about saying that we're agreeing with anything the federal government's doing.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have to cite them, we can just use the same definition.
Definition as of,
Yeah, or we just
February.
won't cross-reference it.
No cross-reference, just use
yeah.
the language as of right now.
Amy knows this.
Can I ask a question just for the structure? So we have a list of services sort of in the order that's in that continuum.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where I put coordinated entry. Is that sort of the first thing that happens? I imagine it's not happening before prevention. And then sometimes it's not happening with shelter services.
I would say any place where we said you don't need to do, it says here someplace. There was
Yeah, there,
2 levels, at least 2 levels of service where you
you
don't.
say you don't need it.
Yeah,
Would it, I guess what I'm asking, would it make sense to lead off with coordinated entry? Is that sort of like the first touch point, or just bundle it with case management services?
I just want to make sure, sometimes the process of doing coordinated entry can be difficult for someone. And just want to make sure that we're not requiring, like at the moment of crisis, like to get into an emergency, you know, to enter a shelter or a hotel room, we're not making sure that they have to be in coordinated entry first before they can do that, because a lot of time folks need time to resolve the crisis, get out of that, you know, that mode, and have a little time to settle in and attend to their basic needs before they're able to do the process. So there were some sections, and I'll have to go back through, where it kind of made it seem like, no, you couldn't access these things until you were in coordinated entry, and that will be really, and sometimes dangerous for our most, you know, the folks with the highest needs, where doing the assessment can be really challenging and in great circumstances, let alone when they're in a crisis.
Madam Chair.
Madam
there's a-
Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know if this is the right place, but what Jubilee was talking about made me remember something. Just want to kind of throw it out there. At some point, I don't remember if it was last year or this year, but we had the concept of like intake shelters where there's some, you know, they're not doing full coordinated entry, but they're kind of assessing the person's needs to kind of figure out which direction they need to be sent to. So I think that kind of fits in with what Jubilee is talking about, is kind of, that's like the first touch point. And I don't know if we have that concept in this bill, but I like that idea of having some intake shelter type place where the first touch point is where a full coordinated entry assessment is not required, but some information is gathered to figure out where the person can be best served and how they can be best served.
I don't know what to do with that right now, right?
Okay, that's fine. That's
vaguely
fine.
in my-
I can,
No, I hear what you're saying. I'm also trying to think about it. I know that that's something that Sarah Phillips had talked about and other people had mentioned along the way. Then that also then requires the people to move again if they turn out that they have to move again. And I'm not
multiple places geographically to be able to.
Yeah, we'd be setting up something in places where I mean, I think the concept can be used without actually having to establish.
yeah, I don't mean like a physical place, but I mean the concept of that first, you know, it could be at wherever the person is. It could be at the lead agency. It could be wherever they show up. It could be at like a designated agency. But like that concept of they're doing it first initial intake to kind of assess the needs before a whole court, because as Jubilee and others have mentioned, a coordinated entry assessment is very like complex and lengthy and in depth.
So it
And
might
a
even just be a time frame of, you know, there's just this kind of threshold need. And then there's a window of a couple of days before it's required that coordinated entry full process. Is that?
I mean, that's a
kind of
possibility.
the concept.
Yeah, I think we had conversations about that last year where we said like they would do this initial assessment and then they would have like X number of days to complete a full coordinated entry assessment and get in the system.
If we did that, I would just really want there to be some kind of accommodation process for those who would need more than a few days to feel safe.
And they may not be able to do it all in one sitting.
Yeah.
It's a long assessment.
And parts of it can be traumatic depending on your history. It can, I mean, there's can take multiple weeks sometimes doing a little section bit by bit and just making sure we're.
Well, it's a matter of of them, of.
That's okay. I think,
I mean, that's part of, accommodation saying for some individuals, if
Okay,
they're
yeah.
supposed to be collaborating to the extent of their ability.
Their ability.
That,
that, so Katie, I think it can just be at the end. I don't think it needs to be like in a sequential place.
I put it right above case
Case
management.
management, yeah.
Okay.
And then we do say that it's not required for emergency, I forget where, I just read it twice. That coordinate entry,
well, that's for the emergency. Right.
right. There's two places, I guess. Emergency cold weather shelters and
And
the municipal grants.
right, the emergency housing services, 1 and 2
Right,
do not.
do not require it.
Do you want to move that down to this section or to have it in both places?
No, keep it where it is and then put it also in the other place.
Okay. Put it in both.
Where it's required and where it's not. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
Amy Schallberger, VCAP. If it's okay, I wanted to circle back to something that Donahue said a while ago about sort of like enforcement of, like, are they actually participating? And we didn't include this on the memo because I wasn't quite sure how to do it, but during the discussion with the CAPs about the bill, one of the things that they talked about was sometimes participating in your plan, your housing plan means you're just kind of sitting around waiting for an opening. And so it's hard to demonstrate that you're actually participating because you might be ready to go, but there's no place for you to go. And so I think if you do put enforcement language in there, I think there has to be something that allows for, it's not always like an active thing that the person has to be doing.
But I think the notion of individualized plans is you set out what that's going to entail. You know, and so it could be just what you said, waiting, needing to have a rental subsidy until the rental subsidies are available. I can't seek a place to go, I mean, or I guess I'm not exactly sure that because there could be other
They're
things.
complying with their plan. If the
Yeah.
plan is to,
I think, I'll just speak from my own experience, having interacted with various systems, sometimes that's what seems like is the expectation, but then, because of some of the stigma around being a low income people and that they're not actively working to change their situation, it can be sort of like subtle punishment. And so I just want to make sure that people are protected if they are participating because the participation is actually being on a waiting list or some
Yeah.
other thing
Yeah.
that isn't visible, that they're doing something.
Yeah, I doubt we're gonna write that into a statute.
I know.
no, but that's why we need some kind of structure that says that rules.
It's just more about the enforcement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think the protection is there and that I would imagine the enforcement starts with the case manager. And if the case manager has put into the plan that, you shall maintain availability to answer questions for the next available voucher, then they would be hard pressed, the case manager, the person has remained available to answer questions about the next available voucher, to say that they're not complying. So I guess I'm siding with the chair and Rep. Donahue that I think.
Disestablishing
okay.
Was there a hand? No.
Yeah, sorry, hands off.
That's all right. Go ahead, Brenda.
I just wanted to say, and I came into this conversation, I don't know where it started, but I can guess. Two things that I think would help and that are important is, yes, sort of, but if that case manager is someone that's not working well, that person may have issues, someone else like we talked about before. And I think there could be some, even though you're not right, I think we're talking about rules, so. No, but whatever we're talking about, if there's if there's some ability for people to be able to appeal in this bill somewhere, then I think that would give them some ability to say, I was actually working on something. Then that.
Yeah, the intent was to have an appeal
Yeah,
section,
yeah.
yeah. I have to look at 91 to see if that one is sufficient or whether it needs to be changed, but the intent would be to go to the Human Services Board like
Yeah.
other agency of human services. Okay. So, that brings us down to rulemaking. So just to summarize, just where we left off here, there's gonna be a separate case management section and there's gonna be a separate coordinated entry section. And they will, reference the disability language that we spoke of and, ability to participate. I had not envisioned, putting a particular timeline in here. I think that's something that probably should be done in rulemaking, because it could change, you know, like,
Right, to the extent of their ability, the active participation, we said to the extent that that would work for coordinated
entry
entry
as well.
concerns as well. If it's to the extent of their ability to do so,
Yeah.
there are a lot of reasons other than a disability that might prevent the ability to do so.
It's not only disability, yeah.
Yeah, so that's,
Okay, so, do we have any comments on the one line?
VCAP in their comment reference rulemaking and in part, some of the limitations of LCAR. And I feel, and I'm not going to recall all the details, but with respect to the departments following legislative intent in rulemaking, there's been a history where it hasn't always followed legislative intent, and it didn't seem like the LCAR process changed that. They persisted with the rules that LCAR did not like. So would it be appropriate, as suggested, to have some sort of check back at the committee level, raising that as a question in light of history?
Well, I think that we will have, because we haven't talked about timeframes. Like, I don't expect all of this to happen like on July 1. So there's going to be a transition process.
Sure.
And so I think that progress reports will need to be provided, yes. I think you raise a good question about the effectiveness of that process. And it has actually resulted in us making changes in appropriation because the department did not follow the process, did not follow the LCAR recommendation. And so it's just as important to know that the department's unwilling to do that as it is them just acquiescing sometimes. So I think other than reporting back to us on, I don't know, some specified dates on progress, it's the process that we have.
you just say after 3 cases with the same outcome on the same fact pattern, it shall be adopted as a policy.
Well, that's actually something we could do since they had over 200 on the same and
Topic, right.
on the same topic, and they got the same result, and they failed to implement it as a
general rule, right?
Yeah. So that involves Human Services Board language. It instructs the department. That's an interesting idea. Have to think about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how viable that is as a
I like it though.
directive, but it's.
I like it. Go ahead, Amy.
Madam Chair, I'd like to just push back a little bit on the rulemaking process. We have comments in our memo with more details with our recommendations. I have worked on different rulemakings over the years and well familiar with the Administrative Procedures Act. And what it doesn't require is stakeholder input before a draft rule is promulgated. You could require that What it doesn't require is, making sure there are public hearings in different parts of the state often. I'm not blaming anybody, just what happens is there's 48 hours notice for a public hearing and it's in one place where no one can get to. When we had VIT, that was a whole different situation. We don't have that anymore. It's another rant.
We got Zoom.
We have Zoom, but they're not required to use it. So I think it's just really important to make sure that people can actually participate in the rulemaking. The other thing is a responsiveness summary is required in the rulemaking process, but it's often not published. So you can't even see what they said about the comments that you submitted. So there's no way to say at Elkhart, we disagree with why they didn't put this in the rule. So I think, without making it like a super long process or adding too many hurdles, it is important for something that is really going to be frankly life or death for people to have a process that makes sure the rulemaking follows the intent of what we all agree to.
You said you had that list of pieces is in your.
I put this in there,
Yeah.
We need to-
Our memo, and you may or may not take all of those
Right.
ideas, but all of those ideas have been used in the past in different pieces of legislation.
Okay. Great, thank you.
And we haven't gone through the written feedback from people, so
Yeah.
that'll be after this process.
The rulemaking.
That's the rulemaking section.
Yeah.
So, and
One of
Katie, I
last
think you got,
questions, and I
you
went
got
through and
copies,
marked up.
right, of
Give me
all the inputs so
copies
far,
and everything.
okay. Okay, so I made some notes about needing to be, essentially more accessible, having responses to public comments, having public hearings prior to adoption of draft rules. We'll take a look at your list. Okay, and I actually, this is about the efficient use of government services, and I actually do want to figure out language, Katie, about if there have been repeated appeals found where the department or I don't know how to put it, but where the petitioner has prevailed on the same topic that and repeated, probably gonna have to be defined by a number, but that the department shall, adopt that interpretation or something like that. Because it's not utilizing our human services board. I'm surprised
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't come in asking for more people. Just in this one program alone, I think we've been very busy
Mhm.
for a full year. Okay, so on reporting, let's talk about a schedule of reporting, an implementation schedule. So it seems as like we would want one when, like
Well, we
next
need,
January?
we need a status report January
Yeah.
before annual reports
Yeah,
start.
that's, I
kicking in.
wasn't thinking about annual reports. I
Yeah.
was thinking about status for implementation.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, so the 15th.
So say January 15th.
7.
yeah, status report on January 15th. 2027.
I ask is that a norm? I just feel like versus December 15th. I just think
Just thinking the
at
same.
the start of a new session, there's
Yeah,
You wanna know why? Because at the next year, we don't know who's gonna be in these seats on January 15th. We definitely, people haven't been sworn in yet. You wouldn't send it to a committee that's not I mean, we're officially still in our seats until January.
Right.
We are
There's no new
unlikely.
chair, there's no,
Right, we are unlikely to have a meeting between now and then to take testimony. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I get that, but I'm just saying, and they're the same 11 people who are at this table most likely will not be the 11 people at the table next year.
Right,
But is there sufficient continuity of membership such that having it before the flood of things 10 days into the new session may be beneficial for the committee?
People are thinking about.
Or maybe I'm more optimistic about doing
Yeah.
more than I really am.
right, that December 15th, you will be starting to prep the session
Yeah.
and want to read this in.
Oh, I can see you doing that.
January.
Good pitch.
And we're gonna have to come back to this, Katie, because it'll depend upon implementation dates of the various sections.
So it'll be a progress report on the department's work to date, set up the program, and would you like to look at draft rules?
Yes, draft rules. I doubt they'll have draft rules by then, but one of the things that I was wondering in terms of ongoing reporting is not dissimilar to what they have been doing, so they're kind of accustomed to it, but also to have it by elements of the continuum.
Hmm.
They have shelter services, but they don't, like, it doesn't distinguish between what's, like, I can't tell out of the 600 and I forget, the number's just gone up. 600, the
Well-
last report, it just went up. It's not 649 anymore. I had that number committed to memory, but it's 670 or something like that now.
Well, could tie in, there's a requirement already about budgets being divided into,
Right.
and so that could also tie
Tie
into
into
the
the reporting.
reports, that they use the same structure.
Yeah,
You're doing that, you might just want to make sure that your section that lays out the continuum is also tracking the sections of the bill. For example, we have this section on hotels and motels with supportive services, and that does not appear in your continuum. Instead, you have transitional housing there. So I don't know, my type A brain wants those to line up, but maybe that's not the intent of the committee.
Yeah, there's.
I thought we got rid of transitional housing.
It doesn't appear as a standalone section.
It's not part of the continuum of care either.
Okay, would you like the language about hotels and motels and supportive services to replace that?
Where is
Where did
it?
we
What
go?
page?
I'm looking at the continuum on page 8.
I'm sorry, I'm unclear what you're asking, Katie.
Okay, so the continuum is an outline for the rest of the chapter of the
Right.
bill.
Right,
Where transitional housing is, there is no transitional housing section. Instead, what you have there, after specialized shelter services, you have hotels and motels with supportive services. Would you like that reflected on page 8
Where do
in
you
your
think-
continuum?
Transitional.
I don't even see transitional
Right, where is
housing.
that? What page? is
Page
it?
8,
Page 8.
One line.
15.
Shelter services, you're looking at the wrong draft.
Ah, okay.
Like you keep saying, I said, I know I
Yeah,
put
where
that
is it?
out.
Where
It's
is it?
out.
So what do you have after specialized services and how?
There's shelter services, specialized shelter, and then permanent supportive
Yeah.
housing.
8:30 a.m.?
Yeah, that's it.
8:30
Okay.
a.m.
I
Draft
printed,
2.1.
maybe I printed an earlier draft. Okay, so I'm gonna cross that off of my draft.
Okay,
Would you like emergent, what did I
I
say?
don't know, but we're confused enough, so.
Okay,
I've been confused for the last.
Should I-
whatever.
Emergency housing
Yes.
has a couple of
Emergency housing
accidental
services,
uses elsewhere.
should hotels and motels with supportive services be captured in that list
No.
on page 8 to track what's happening with the rest of the bill?
Oh, because that's their 2208 on page 11.
Yes.
Comes after specialized services and before permanent supportive housing.
The answer to that is yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Because they're the part of the continuum of care.
Yes, and we've added case management and coordinated entry.
There are a couple of places in 2208 which refer to emergency housing.
Okay.
I don't think that's intended to be emergency housing as per
There's,
just on the continuum.
after that, there's emergency cold weather shelter
Right.
and then emergency housing.
And what is emergency housing?
It is the temporary accommodations or related services necessary to protect health, safety, and welfare of eligible households. That's not that's like shelter.
Well,
And
okay,
then emergency cold weather shelter is the ones related to those, when the temps are 10 degrees below, or below 10 degrees.
but then emergency, then that's, you're talking about shelters. I think the use of the term emergency housing under 2208 makes it very confusing. Because if we're talking about shelter, we should say shelter.
Well, it accompanies, I think, a broad variety of options.
It has,
Yeah.
so on line 13 of page 11 is what Ann is referring to.
Yeah.
There's two spots there. Yeah, because if you go
There's
back to
one.
page 9, line 18, the heading is emergency housing services shall consist of.
But we can, so,
And that's 1, 2,
all right,
and
back up a second.
It's fine.
Page 11,
That's fine.
page 11, line 13, we could just end after motel rooms, okay?
yes, that would,
That would clear it up there.
yes. And then,
You have that,
then to
Katie?
line 8.
No,
On page
minute,
Right.
Page 11,
Page 11.
line
line
13,
13,
and motel rooms, period.
period.
And the exact same thing,
No,
line
no, no,
18.
there it is.
No, yep, touching out for emergency housing.
Okay, great, thank you.
Likewise, line 18, same
Right.
thing.
Emergency housing. Just the phrase for emergency housing.
Yes, right.
Okay, thank you.
Because we want them to, if homelessness is decreasing, we want their use to decrease.
That's what I.
Or anything.
Oh, 18, that line.
Just
Somewhat, yeah.
I have a question. So if we're in, page 8, the continuum of care components. This is a framing thing for me. I just need to understand. It strikes me that we're talking about what the continuum of care is for an individual. And these are the steps that we hope to move an individual through.
Not necessarily, they can come in at any point.
Yeah, okay, all right, so, yeah, but I mean, it's once they're on a direction, they're going.
Menu of options.
Right. So I don't see how hotels and motels fits into this. Because hotels and motels is a tool that could be used in any number of these. We're describing hotels and motels at this point as being something that could be used for emergencies. They could be used for shelter. They could maybe be even converted at some point. And so if we list hotels and motels, aren't we going to have to kind of jury rig that whole definition?
But it's only those with supportive services. It's the one where it's supposed to be.
Essentially run as a shelter.
So we have specialized shelter services, number 4.
It could be
in the
it
continuum.
could be A and B. Yeah, it could be, it doesn't have to be a separate 2208. Is that
So,
what you're saying?
yeah, I guess what I'm trying to do is help us all get separated from the notion of the hotel motel program as a thing that where we park people, which is what we need to stop thinking about. We
No,
need
but
to
if you
start
look-
thinking as a tool to
Get 'em out.
through this entire continuum. It's just one tool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it is a method of emergency shelter.
Yes.
Just while going to a bricks and mortar shelter is
Right.
also an emergency
Exactly.
shelter. So they
I
look
understand.
different, but it's a tool, and in a lot of other programs, that's just what it is. It's an emergency shelter. It's kind of one we've stood up, but it's and that's why, for me, that nuance is It's just one form of emergency shelter we're
Right.
hoping to reduce.
And for me, that's why it doesn't belong, exactly what you're saying, why it doesn't belong in this list.
Would it be under
I mean, it
2206?
A or B, but here we go. Here's it.
Oh, I don't know, where to go, but,
Jenna?
it gets more confusing. So we have emergency shelter apartments that we master lease.
Yes,
The word emergency is not very clear enough because people get into these master lease apartments off of coordinated entry. So like if you present an emergency, doesn't mean you're gonna be in the
Oh, yes,
emergency
yeah.
shelter apartment. You are on a coordinated entry and the apartment's
Language
already
is just all
over
bugged
here,
up.
like, yeah, it's a system, but they are called emergency shelter, master lease apartments.
Are we,
yeah, you might have to rename them.
I would.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brenda.
You weren't here yesterday when I brought this up. There's no number of hotels, so I brought it up so what happens in the middle of winter? Oh, and I was told that it will go by the amount of money. And even if the
Yes.
money is spent in the middle of winter, there won't be any hotels to put them in because we're gonna be out of money.
Well, that's why it's up to the department and up to us to budget responsibly,
And that's.
which we have been able to do.
Yeah, but that's part of the investment and focus on making sure the emergency seasonal, the cold weather shelters that they're, because the hotel rooms are backed up if
Getting more.
there's no beds left there. And so the combination hopefully meets that need. So we're
Getting
not
more of
leaving
the
people on the
shelter
street.
space. Okay, so.
It's like we're not saying a certain number of shelter beds, like on the, like cots, everybody's
Mhm.
familiar with cots. We're not saying, those kinds of shelters we're limited to, 670 or 780. We're taking a look at what the needs are and then we identify within the resources that we
You
have
might-
where we're
Right
gonna.
now, we're at 1,100 rooms, I think. 1,100.
Yeah, it was 1,200 last week.
It was 1,200 last week, so it could go over that if they have the money.
In the emergency weather, yes.
Yeah.
Not during the regular,
Because right now, you're only allowed so many, right?
not in winter weather.
Not in one, okay,
Winter weather, it's by budget essentially,
by budget.
like what we're talking about
Okay,
here.
okay.
Yeah.
to return back to Zan's point that he's raising, see if I understand it. We have 2206 shelter services, and the language there, I think, if I understand it correctly, is referring to what I'm going to call the traditional or historic shelter providers, like cots, that you just mentioned. And should that be A? And then B would be what's under 2208, the hotels and motels and supportive services, as they are another variant of shelter services.
Exactly. That's where,
Yeah, I understood where you were going.
yeah. It's like hotels and motels need to be the B under every one of these lists.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know that, I know, but I mean, but in fact, at least in the transition.
Or if it had a sort of a heading, transitional shelter with supportive service, just so that it's clear that that whole section is not part of our intended permanent continuum of care.
But
This is what we're doing as a transition.
Yeah, I mean, it might be though. I mean, for
Well, there
the
might be a
ones
small-
with supportive
yes.
services, I think it actually might be.
Okay, right. It might be the
Yes,
place.
there's so many different.
Yeah.
I know.
So for right now, just kind of hold that thought.
Okay.
Okay, I understand what you're trying to get at. And I think it will be helpful for us to see a new draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, my.
Maybe by Tuesday.
You can have it sooner than that.
No, Tuesday will be fine for this group, trust me. And it means that you're so interested that you can just proceed as we have. No, what it really means is that I have other things to add to this, and then Tuesday they'll add it and more.
So you mean you,
Hopefully.
you.
And that's why I just acknowledged it would be me. And I'll think about that, because I do understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's like, but I can't think of honestly another name or another label other than shelters or shelters.
Yes, exactly.
If there was a broader label that's not emergency housing.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, I hear you.
yeah, so we might have to live with the,
Okay.
with the,
Well, thank you for the conversation because it helps me understand a
okay,
little more. So good. Yeah.
okay. And Jubilee, they told me to write down your name under permanent supportive housing, that you had some language. Oh, no, then they took that back. No. And they took it back.
Language around tackling that prevention, diversion,
Yes.
and that.
Yes,
third-
they took it back. Sorry, I wrote it down, but I didn't cross it.
Okay.
As things doing it now.
Right, as it's doing it now.
Yeah, I didn't realize.
I threw you under the bus.
It's all good, yeah.
I advised Esme as well. I think we also want to kind of connect with HHAB about, in addition to Lily, but there is like a HUD definition of permanent supportive housing, because it's also a HUD.
Right, and I
Yeah,
said,
so-
we want it to reflect that, but we don't want it to be only that,
Only that, yeah,
Right.
no.
because this is AHS.
So I sent her some of that.
Okay, all
I'm happy
good.
to check in with her.
Okay, all right, now we're on to section 5 on page 14. Remember, we're coming back to reporting. I find the monthly reporting incredibly helpful. I don't know if other people utilize it. Yes.
Yes.
So I think we're gonna keep some sort of monthly reporting. And they're kind of used to it now. So, okay, merger of continuums of care.
Okay, in order to promote the effective use of resources and continuity of care, the Department for Children and Families Office of Economic Opportunity shall work in collaboration with the Chittenden County Homeless Alliance, the Balance of State Continuum of Care, and the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to establish a single continuum of care in the state on or before July 1, 2028.
Yeah.
And HHABs, and I'm not sure who else kind of really spoke.
I haven't read the feedback
It's
yet.
really just, there's a lot to dig into that, making sure we're touching base with HUD and what that process would entail. HUD does a lot of great things for our state, but it is an incredibly clunky, funder to work within, and things can often be slow. So I just want to make sure that there is room, that fully, that there's plenty of time to go through the process and the internal state processes. There's 2 kind of governance structures that then have to vote.
I'm open to a
and
different day.
combine. And, and that, there will likely be costs associated with this, as well as changes to the HMIS. And so I just, wanted to echo the concerns and opportunities outlined in HHAB and make sure we spend some time digging into that once everyone's had a chance to read them. And I don't know, Chad, I don't know, like Abby Miller, or who we might be able to reach out to, who might be able to kind of walk us through what that might look like.
We don't need to walk
We
through
don't?
with that,
Okay.
no. If it needs more time, I mean, I wasn't expecting this to happen overnight, and I knew it would be a process. There would be costs associated with that process, because as much as the previous director tried to get the elements to match up, they don't 100% match up, and we want to explore the use of it for the service plan as well, so there's different things that need to be considered. So I'm perfectly open to other dates, and we can allocate some resources towards it as well. So you have a suggested date? Have you been in contact with the Chittenden County people?
Yes, so it's a really good question, and a number of our members and a couple of folks at the table shared some of the feedback as well. And so I think I've instructed my staff to pull together kind of a list, answering the questions, what would some of the challenges be, what would the opportunities be, what would be the resources or needs to pull that together. The Chittenden County Homeless Alliance did the same. I believe they've actually kind of drafted an outline already. So we're both working on those. I think by and large, we would just have questions around the expectation of the timings. I think the bill draft lays out an initial timeframe for that, and I think we have responded.
I just changed it to 2029.
Oh, okay.
So far.
And then Chad,
I can understand it taking a couple of years to accomplish something like that. I mean, you gotta get people all on the same page. But the other part that I'm a little concerned about allowing too much time, and so maybe it should be October 1 of 2028 instead of another whole year, but and because I was thinking like maybe it should match the federal fiscal year, because that's when the funding comes in. Yeah, it should be an October date. Let me make it October 2028. I just lost my train of thought. It'll come back.
And Chad, is there, you had wrote, in kind of the list, and one possible concern was that it could affect the overall amount. We might see a reduced amount of HUD funds coming into the state if we were to combine. Do you have more information on that yet, or?
I don't have more information.
Okay.
That's what I've asked our team to kind of pull together what could be some of the further challenges around a merged system. I think our initial conversation was there'd be a fair amount of opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think it's a worthwhile discussion. I've shared with a number of members that these conversations are not new. They've been happening for quite some time. So I would like to get a full understanding of what some of those conversations came to, like where they came to, what were some of the outcomes other than, no, not right now, is a good time to merge, but why? And understanding some of the reasons why behind those, and then maybe looking at what are some ways in which, if it was resourced, I think, Chair Wood, you had mentioned, like, if we were to resource those conversations and bring partners together that were willing to have those conversations, I think we could look at some possibilities. But there are some potential drawbacks, and I think the uncertainty of things at the federal government right now, definitely, there is definite reason to do this thoughtfully.
Maybe we have legislative intent language leading that in order to promote effective use, and we ask for a progress report on July 1 of 2027. And then I understand the concern. And honestly, if I were sitting at the federal level, if you're not running two organizations to do this, I would think about reducing some of that, because, which I think is fair. I don't think we should expect to get the same amount if we're not running two separate organizations. So I'll think about that, taking your thoughts into consideration there, okay?
Absolutely provide more granular detail.
Yeah. I don't think in the previous versions, Chad, I don't think the legislature said this is something we want to see.
It's a fair point. I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
But I'm not aware of any direction from the legislature.
Yeah. Okay. It's appropriate too in grant agreements.
So,
yeah, go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, in terms of grant agreements, when we read through them, maybe people should be attentive towards. I'm not sure that we want that one must require for seasonal shelters under 2205, number 1 and 2. Because, for instance, they have to utilize the coordinated entry assessments or things like that. So maybe some do or some don't, but when we look through them, I think we have to consider whether all of those.
Yes, we're adding a section for seasonal shelter.
Okay.
Under shelters.
Under where?
Well, this is why having a broad category makes sense, because I don't want to list like 5 different kinds of shelters. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
So I'm trying to think of something, but I haven't thought of it yet.
okay.
But Lily brought up the fact that we currently have seasonal shelters
Mhm,
that are operated by different people
mhm.
that are only stood up in the winter.
Right.
And they're different than the, emergency cold weather shelters.
Right.
They're staffed and stuff.
And those are not things that we would want to come under these grant requirements.
Right. And I think that, part of the grant requirements, and so think about this with a little bit different light, is think about what is it that we want to measure in terms of outcomes of this continuum. So I think that these will be looking different, I guess is what I'm seeing, So we want to know, the percentage of people who are participating in coordinated entry versus the percent who've applied. We want to see a reduction in the people who return to homelessness after having been placed in permanent housing. For instance, that's a pretty high percentage right now, and hopefully with a continuum that includes supportive services, that we can reduce that. This was something that people wanted last year. They wanted more participation in the housing coalitions from other AHS partners. Like the designated agencies or like the local SUD provider or Department of Corrections, probation and parole, if it's appropriate, I don't know. So are those still things that people want to see here? And some of that is not through a grant agreement. Some of that is, state employees. So I guess I'm just saying that this is gonna look slightly different. But if you have specific things that you think are elements that we should have to measure our progress in reducing homelessness, this is kind of the spot where I'm thinking about they should go. Yeah, Katie.
Just about the mechanics of this section. So I was asked that this section would take effect when the continuums were merged. So this section takes effect in your draft, July 1.
Yeah.
But I just bumped it back to October. So that's why this section would be a part of the chapter you just created. But it's split off as its own section. So as to allow it to have a different effective date. So I just want to make sure everyone realizes how the mechanics work there.
So, I just got confused a little bit. So are you saying that this then relates to the continuum of care?
This would be part of that chapter, the way this is drafted. This would be tacked on to the end of the chapter at a later date.
Okay, but it's not just for an organization or SHUNS that is the continuum of care provider or whatever they call it.
I'm not sure I'm following. I think this is any agreement for any of the continuum services.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah. Amy?
Amy Schulberger, what Katie just said, gave me a mention about fiscal years. So it seems like the grant agreements come with the funding. I hope your bill somewhere, there will be appropriation for the coming fiscal year 27. Are you envisioning this to be part of the FY 27 grant agreements, or is this?
Some parts of it will be.
So I just think that needs to be clear, like, which maybe even in the appropriations, we make a reference to this section if it's supposed to apply. There, they feel alertness bill. Because I think, I'm just aware sometimes getting grants is complicated by disagreements about what we thought the legislation said.
Okay. I also want to include reference in the appropriation section about any funds appropriated under this that are not spent in FY 27 or carried forward into FY 28 or succeeding years to be used for this purpose.
Okay.
Because we've been told that a lot of this new development is definitely not gonna, these are annualized, and a lot of this new development is not going to be next year. I mean, if it does, it'll be late in the year, so they will not experience these costs. Okay, I think the next chapter is all about the network. So I think we're gonna stop there. Hey, Katie, I just am looking at section 2115. It won't be called the General Assistance Program Report anymore. But that's the.
That is cleanup. Right now, there is a general assistance report and we're removing housing from it.
Okay,
I mean, it will still be called general assistance because that report will still be about general assistance. It just won't be about general assistance housing because there won't be general assistance housing.
we get that?
It's an annual report about general assistance.
I don't think we need it.
Do you want to strike the whole report?
Yeah. Been in this committee for 9 years, 10 years, and we haven't looked at it once, so.
I look at it every day. I didn't even know what.
You get a gold star then.
Yes, one.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna, rather than getting into a whole new thing, we're gonna stop here. And tomorrow, just, I think I mentioned this, but just as a reminder, tomorrow we're hearing testimony from the department. I really not sure exactly what, they're gonna say, but I'm sure we'll get some feedback about our discussions and the shape of our bill. And do we have did they confirm yet, Lori? All right. I'm gonna text my buddy. Okay, so, and then I am gonna, Katie, we'll proceed with the 660.
Yep.
Without the overdose prevention center.
The editors, I'll have it too
Okay.
later today.
And one of the things, and Nolan took great notes. So Nolan, if you're listening, I just want you to know you took great notes. One thing I just wanted to note was that we wanted in the bill sustainability language so that and we want to pause for 1 year new grant requests, with the exception of the 4. He didn't make note of those.
Okay, I'll need more information for that.
Okay. And I'm presuming that they're gonna give JFC updates on rural housing transformation grant. We wanted updates on the recovery housing piece to be included with that. Do you think that's appropriate to include in here?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It might be something that goes in the budget language, not in the bill, but when they, that we should get updates on the rural health transformation grant to JFC. I'm sure somebody is going to have that language someplace. So maybe we don't need to
put it in.
Yeah, so unless you don't see that language appear someplace.
Okay.
We want to get updates at JFC, particularly about recovery housing, because that's what's in there for us. So I guess right now it's just be that requests for funding, future requests for funding need to review the sustainability plan. And that we're gonna pause the request for 1 year to enable the committee to look at outcomes for existing and past grants. Okay, that's the only 2 things. Okay, so we'll see you back here tomorrow.